Happy Tuesday, everyone. Goodness gracious, it's been a week or so. I don't know. It feels like it's been a long time since we've gathered. There's been so many things happening with the schedule. You know that our shows are on Tuesday nights, but we do, accommodate things that are happening in the community. So we had quite a few things where we changed up our schedule a little bit. We had the superintendent, the Clark County School District superintendent search is happening. So there were a couple of special meetings that were on Tuesday. So just so that everybody could be engaged and tune in, we decided to reschedule our conversations. If you haven't met me and don't know who I am, my name is Camila Bywaters. I am currently I'm finishing my dissertation. You will not see me as much in the community because I really do have to hunker down on my dissertation chapters. So once I finish, my plan is to finish this summer. So once I finish, I look forward to being out there with you all, just doing what we do best, advocating for each other and supporting each other. We're really in just like a very interesting time. And I would love for everyone tonight to really, talk about how you're feeling. What are you thinking about? The space is open for you to do that, but we are live, so people will hear and make comments and make notes. But I think this is what our collective voices are so important. So we can hear some of our reservations, some of the challenges, some of the things that we're looking forward to. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Rodney share. Go ahead and introduce himself. And we have so many new people on the Facebook Live in the Zoom. So I'm so nervous to I know you guys, you all know how my brain goes. Like when I have people that are logging in, I get nervous to let them in because if you all don't know, we were Zoom bombed one time with porn images during campaign season. So I get nervous of letting people in, but we have a lot of new faces in today. So you're welcome to share, introduce yourself if you would like. So at this time, we'll have our co-host Rodney introduce himself.
Good evening, everybody. I am Rodney Smith. I believe I'm still one of the biggest fans of Miss Camila Bywaters next to her family. I just think this is such a unique opportunity for someone who ran to school board to open herself up to the public and to share. And I thought, wow, what a great school board trustee we would have if this carried over once she got elected. So she didn't get elected, but guess what? She is still here, which shows her commitment, her dedication to the cause and to the community. So I am still here with her, giving you all access not only to her, but also to some of the prominent guests that she have on and people who are important to us, like the folks that will be on tonight. So I'm ready to let's get it on.
Yes, thank you so much. Like, listen, so my family's like, girl, you should call yourself the community trustee. I was like, yep.
Trustee at large.
Trustee at large, right? But I can tell you, whatever's happening in District E right now is a hot mess. I get people complaining about what's going on, but I'm like, you know what? That's where we are. And I'm hoping that as we're going through everything that we're going through right now with 47, Orange Theory, Cheeto Mussolini, as you call him, Mr. Rodney, that people will really see how consequential, important, and important to our lives that voting is to everything that we do. I know that I think he has like a State of the Union or something coming up. I know that Roland Martin has event that he's doing, the People's State of the Union. So make sure that you're supporting independent media.
Yes.
Because they right now are the ones doing the work and speaking truth to power and reporting what is true. Unlike these other outlets, you have to really do your research and know who's not trying to present a one-sided view of what's going on. So
how about the Midas touch?
Oh, I love the Midas touch. So my favorites are, so there's two white girls from Oklahoma. Oh my goodness. They're called I've Had It. They are great. Pumps. I can't remember the other young ladies.
Send that link. I want to find them.
Yes, I'll send you the link. They do a good job. And they crack me up because they have like all of the coolest names for people. I also like Brian Cohen Taylor or Brian Tyler Cohen. He's doing really good. Of course, Roland Martin. There's a couple others too. The Native Pod. They're doing a really good job. So I'm going to make sure that I give you all of these people that I like to listen to. I like to watch Tabitha's Politics as well, and Reese Waters. So they're really good. They're really, putting out information that we need to hear, because unfortunately, people are subscribing to the cult. And we've lost a lot of people in this ideology and this.
And people who look like us.
Oh, absolutely.
We're supposed to know better because
Mhm.
we've been the brunt of this for decades, centuries. And when I see, look, anybody can fall to brainwashing, AKA whitewashing. But when I see Black people fall into this, it just shows how deeply this is gaining roots throughout all of society. And it's not just the people who may be married to their cousins slash sisters and things like that. There's, the stereotype. I know some people who have PhDs. I know some doctors who ascribe to some of the foolishness. So we should not underestimate the power of his words and of the MAGA movement. It is not going away anytime soon. And like any virus, it is spreading. It's like it's infecting more people and people that you wouldn't think. So we all need to be on guard. And yes, those podcasts that bring the facts, and I don't mind it being one sided as long as the one side is on is the side of truth and facts. So, big
Yes.
shout out to these media outlets, because some of the larger institutional media outlets are under attack and are falling, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did anyone else? We have some new people. Actually, Tracy, whenever you're ready, we're doing introductions of our co-host. So when you're ready, you can introduce yourself. I wanted to give you a moment to breathe since you just logged in.
Good evening, everybody. I see some new individuals on here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Just looking forward to hearing this lively conversation this evening. I'm not going to take too much time of introducing myself because I know we want to get right into the topic. So that's all I have to say.
Hey,
Oh,
Sister Tracy.
Yeah.
Hi.
So thank you so much. Is there anyone else who wanted to introduce himself who's new tonight on our Zoom? You don't have to, but if you would like to, you're welcome to do so. So here's what I was thinking about. I didn't see anyone. So here's what I was thinking about for tonight. So, I do want us to break down Kendrick Lamar. You all, there were so many good nuggets in that performance. So we're going to save that for another day. And what I really wanted us to get into is the Clark County School District, the superintendent search, our final 3 candidates, what you all are thinking. Have you looked up resumes? Have you looked up previous work? And then what we're going to do is, well, some of us, I don't know, everybody doesn't have to agree with us. But if you don't know, Tracy and I lead the Las Vegas Alliance of Black School Educators. So we are going to offer our opinion on who we think the best superintendent would be. But first, what I would like to do is establish credibility. And I think that is so important as we're talking about who should be, or our thoughts around who the next superintendent should be. So Tracy, what I would like for us to do is really just kind of a high level overview of our experience in the Clark County School District and our experience as advocates. And the reason why I believe that establishing credibility is so important for us to lay the foundation and the groundwork is, I don't know about you, but whenever I go and I'm looking for a recommendation, I want to know who you are. Why should I listen to your opinion on an important topic? So I think it is important that you understand that when Tracy and I, or Lavapsi, when we're making a recommendation, it's because 1, we've done our homework. 2, it's grounded in our work and years of experience in the Clark County School District. If you don't know anything about us, one thing that we have not done yet is lead our people into the desert or the wilderness. We have not. And that is always a priority of ours, is that when we're making decisions, and recommending people who we think have all of our best interests at heart. So we definitely want to talk about what you all are thinking, some questions you would have. So I'll go ahead and start, or no, Tracy, you start first. Run down your high-level overview of your history in the Clark County School District. And right now we're establishing credibility.
Okay, so I've worked for the Clark County School District for about 30 years in various support staff positions, and then I went over to a charter school. But I've been with a lot of the current applicants that are applying for this position as the superintendent. And so I know what their history is because we've worked in some capacity together. So I think having 30 years of history speaks volumes in and of itself. So let me start right there. With some of the previous candidates that had came before the board that were turned away for whatever the reason, there were things that had came up in their past of being administrators at schools or as associate superintendents. So when we're looking and having conversations with the community or with individuals when they're asking us about certain people or when they're asking us for recommendations for a position, whether it be admin or teacher or whatever the case may be, we usually have those working relationships based off of previous history. I was born and raised here. My family comes from a long line of advocacy. So that's where I am grounded and rooted for, God knows, over 50 plus years. So for me, and I want to say for LaVapsi, I'm gonna stick my neck out on the line because we do have a flyer that's saying who we support, and we support Joan Ebert because as of now, she's been the only one that has not had any scandals that have come up with her name. So a lot of people like Dr. Jesse Welsh, but the credibility comes in for the things that happened when he was the superintendent in Arizona. And he came back to Nevada because of, I guess, his life and his family's life was being threatened during the COVID period. So that right there has a lot of people kind of concerned because we're dealing with MAGAs currently in Clark County. As many of you know, we have at least 2 on the school board. With I call him Mr. Michigan Schulner, some information has just now surfaced about him and his history in Michigan. So, and he's out of state. And so from the town halls and the focus groups that were held, most of the community had a checklist. And the checklist was they wanted somebody that was in town or familiar with the Clark County School District. And there were some other applicants that we were looking for and to see if they were going to apply, and they did not. So I want to put that out there as well. But the focus groups, the questions with administrators, teachers, support staff professionals, some of the parents, the former trustees and some of the current trustees, they wanted somebody basically that was in-house. Nope, they didn't have any ties with Chiefs for Change or the Greater Council of Schools because a lot of that is what the previous superintendent had came from. They wanted somebody who could basically hit the ground running and that already had working relationship with the legislators, new budgeting, this, that, and the other. And so for us, we know that Joan fits all of those criteria at this time based off of what we know about Dr. Welsh and Mr. Schindler. And I don't think I'm saying his name right, so I'm gonna call him Mr. Ben. The other thing is that Camilla and I have worked with Joan Ebert with the U.S. Department of Education with our partners through NAN. And hold on, you guys, 1 second. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. That was my grandson. So yeah, we worked with her with the U.S. Department of Education with our partners, Christina Laster. with Nan, and she was, sought after by Cordona. And so there's just a whole line of work history there. She is not racist. She has a history with Black folks because that stigma is being put out there that she does not like Black people. She does not want to work with Black people. I guess she just has an overall issue with Black people. I have not, and I've been working with her and knowing her for 30 years. So for me, she's invited to the cookout. That's where I'm at. She is a fair person. She's as fair as she can possibly be. We all know that everybody's not going to be happy with the choices, that people make. But at this point in time, we said it before that we have an opportunity to change the direction and the trajectory of this district in a direction that we need to go in to get out of the hole, out of the funk that we've been in. A lot of our employees and our friends and colleagues have been threatened, harassed, for back of letter words, tormented, with the previous administration because of retaliation and fear mongering and all of that. So there is a lot of healing that needs to take place. There's a lot of cultural needs to take place that needs to be cleaned up. We need to get the budget back on track. John has worked with billion-dollar budgets. I can't say that about the other gentlemen, just based off of the history that we have with them so far. There's just a lot there to unpack and to unravel, but I just kind of wanted to give my version of a low-high overview of why, for me personally, that I'm supporting John. And then if anybody has questions of me regarding John and my decision, you're more than welcome to call me. My number is out there. You're more than welcome to text me, call me, email me, whatever the case may be. But from the time that this process started and we knew that her name was in and researching the candidates, we knew that she would be a fit. And so there was another candidate that we thought would be in this particular race with her, but the trustees saw fit not to have that candidate to move forward. So these are the three. They'll be over at Rancho. I believe it's on the 10th of this month for community outreach where you can go and have conversations with these individuals to ask them whatever you want to ask them, to make your own decisions and your own opinions. I'm looking at based off of the checklist of what was said. Joan meets every category. Plus, she's a female. We've never had a female. And she's AAPI, which they're a fast-growing population demographic in our community, and they have no representation. So she's going to fill two categories with that just by itself, along with her extensive work history and her work background in education for the last, God knows, I know it's been longer than 30 years, but I'm gonna say 30 years because we worked together for over 30 years. So I think I've said enough. I'm gonna let Camilla take back over. And if I've missed anything, then just, let me know and then I'll chime back in.
Really cool. Really quick, I just wanted to that Assemblywoman Claire Thomas shared the 82nd legislative session AB 330, in which Joan supported the governor's bill, which looks to expel children in CCSD. So if we want, we can talk about that a little bit as well. But really what I want is for us to have, just if anyone has any insights or things that you're thinking about, what you're looking for in a superintendent, I think this is a great time to have that conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and just establish a little bit of credibility for myself. I started working in the Clark County School District in 2008 as a sub, and then I went through an alternate route to licensing. And 2008, I became a licensed special education teacher. I started out my career in the Clark County School District. It lasted for a whole 3 years, and I was like out of here because it was that was a hot mess of, I don't know what that was, but I ended up through my work. I was in my 20s when I started teaching. And when I thought that I should have been nurtured as a Black teacher, Black woman teacher, I was not. Like, I was like enemy number one in the Clark County School District. So LAVAPSI ended up rebirthing out of the experience that myself and some administrators and other teachers had at the Clark County School District at Canyon Springs. And this was around 2008, 2009, 10, 11. So we ended up rebirthing LAVAPSI, the Las Vegas Alliance of Black School Educators, because we were having so many problems in schools. So in 2008, that's when I really began my journey of understanding more about the Clark County School District. Since then, when I first started as a teacher, since then, I remember my dad telling me, he was like, Camila, whatever you do, you're starting your teaching career, document everything. And when I tell you that was probably the best advice that he could give me, like I still have my documents to this day in my email from the things that I experienced as a 20-something-year-old teacher, watching other teachers specifically, and it was I would say it was elderly people. There were some white people who were having issues, but it was mostly Black people who were having issues at that time when I was teaching. So from there, it was really important for me to learn as much as I could, because I was like, okay, one day I'm coming back. So I did my 3 years, and then I ended up going to divinity school and teaching a year in DC public schools and just doing all the research I could. Tracy and I were still advocating during that time for teachers and helping students and helping and really just listening for decades on the issues that were happening. So we understand the culture, the climate, the politics that is CCSD. So fast forward, I moved, ended up coming back to Vegas. We restarted and reimagined. LAVAPSI has always been operating, but we reimagined again in 2020. And what was important for us at that time was to establish more of our credibility in the community. So we wanted to make sure that we were connecting our community with their elected officials. So LAVAPSI we've done roundtables with Commissioner McCurdy. We've done roundtables on education with Congresswoman Susie Lee. We've done roundtables with Congressman Horsford, which we were just in his office talking with his representatives, and we're still going to continue these conversations. And our goal was to not only educate our community about educational issues, but to connect our community with their leaders, but then to also provide some education to our leaders who are maybe at the federal or local state, who maybe do not know all of the challenges that are happening within the district. Some of our wins that we've had, we've been able to successfully support the promotion of 3 principals to the high school level. As you know, we have a very deep equity issue with high school principals that are Black male and Black women. So we were able to advocate for the Marentics at their various schools, and then Mr. Garcia at Finley. So this is the type of work that we do. So we will call an associate superintendent, an assistant superintendent, an HR, whoever. We will call you at a hot minute in a second to get a meeting. And that has taken us, goodness gracious, taken us years to position ourselves in this way. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background of where we are and how we've been able to gain influence in this space. There's still more work that needs to be done, because I always think of it from a perspective of, we're able to help the people that call, the students that call. We've been able to help get some students expulsions reversed if it was a frivolous matter. We're able to help individuals, but where we need to elevate as a community is ensuring that we have policy in place so that individuals are not having to go to organizations to get the help that they need. Yes, it's great that we are available and we're here to help, but the Clark County School District, y'all ain't paying me not a 1 cent to be out here. Y'all need to do this job with your 6 figures. So as a community, our work is to building policy so that we don't have the 1 and 2 people, the 3, 4, 5 people coming for help, because we know that these are issues that our community has a challenge with. So that's our credibility. I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I'm very passionate I do a lot of research. That's like my underlying thing. So when I'm making a decision, I'm very methodical about it. I do understand that not everyone's perfect. And that's also part of our conversation, determining who are we going to go with the so-called whatever baggage they may have and how we're going to navigate that as a community. So I've done enough talking. Did anyone have anything that they wanted to talk about? I've pulled up some information on the candidates that you all can all get. It's public information. So we're not talking about anybody behind their back. This is all public. You can go to ccsd.net and you can get their curriculum vitae if they have one, their resume, and a profile of all the candidates, our final 3 candidates who are up for choice. March 10th, I believe it starts March 10th and 11th. I'll get the dates while we're on here. But the candidates will be in the community doing question and answer session. So if you would like to attend one of those, I would say that you attend and have your questions prepared so that you can get a feel for the candidates yourself. I'm sure we may have some of them watching right now because they like to see what are they gonna say? What is Camila and Tracy about to say today? But one thing that's really important in my mission for 2025 is to highlight school boards. Not only school boards in our state, but across the country, because there's a lot of things happening with them. And then also be more focused in on what's happening in education from a local and a federal level. There's a lot of updates that we have coming up for that. But what I want is for our community to be engaged and to understand how consequential and important our votes are. We have a person on the board right now who is totally against DEI. And I will tell you that she's going to be the resident snitch, filing complaints on anyone doing DEI to the government.
So who is that person, Sister Camila?
So that person is Lorena. She is, I'm not going to say the name, but I might, because they called me all kinds of names under the book. But so Lorena is in District E. That was my opponent. And she's already gotten a lot of complaints because her rhetoric, the words that she's saying are against the policies of the Clark County School District. I know that some people have sent complaints to the Attorney General. So, I mean, this is where we are. I do want to talk about when we further get on, when we move on another day. I was looking for, apparently the U.S. Department of Education, and Anna might know this, they had, is it a link for people who are, a link to complain on people who are doing DEI work? So I went to the Department of Education. I don't see it, but I'm still gonna look to see if it's up there. I don't see it on the Department of Education, where there's supposedly, I'm hearing that there was a link that's put out on the Department of Education for people to complain about anyone doing, if they're feeling discriminated against and there's DEI work happening. So please know that your District E representative is about that life. She will complain and she will report you. Right now, she's not in a position, she doesn't have that much power on the board in regards to voting, a voting block. So we're kind of in a safe space there, but we have elections coming up, and we need to get on it. But this is why the superintendent is very important, because of the extreme level, because of the extremists that we have on the board. We have to have a very strong superintendent who will be able to navigate through that. Did anyone have any? Dr. Courtney, you said you had words with her when voting. Listen, that thing right there, she is harasser number one. She's a hot mess. There's a lot of people that would call me and say that she was a hot mess over there at the we call it Republican Row over there at Desert Breeze. All right, did anyone else have anything? Because I've been talking for a while. Let's do shout outs really quick. I'm gonna do shout outs really quick for those on Facebook. We have, okay, Is this Al's Marketplace? Oh, that's Belinda Denise. Hey, Belinda Denise. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Did anyone else have anything? Yeah.
One of the things that I hope that when we're looking at this new superintendent
Mhm.
is where they stand with the things proposed in Project 2025, what their plans are to resist those things that are harmful to our district and our children, as well as how are they going to compensate for possibly not having a federal Department of Education, and how that will impact the overall district budget. And if you don't have the Department of Education coming down with dictates for how things should be done, especially when it involves our diverse community, what plans do they have to implement things to ensure we're able to deal with the drop in fiscal contributions from the federal government, as well as pressures from the federal government to make our school district like a Florida or Texas school district?
Absolutely. And I think those are great questions to ask. Those questions absolutely have to be on the question list and should be for their upcoming conversation. And I think that's absolutely very important because we know that there's a couple states already that are following the so-called mandates of 47. You have some schools who are mandating that Bibles are in the schools. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Federal funding we see across the country. People have lost their jobs. Federal funding is being cut in education. If you don't know right now, like the universities are having to think about how to use the money that they have quickly and swiftly, and then also grappling with whether or not they're going to bring in the funding that they've already gotten and then bring students in and then have this money not come. So these mandates or whatever they're doing up there have already started trickling down and impacting people. Darlene? Oh.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about the importance of measuring the data in our community, and it's only about our children. We have to recognize that when we're looking at the children who look like us and the children who are mixed race, we're not seeing the same level of access. And they have an obligation to ensure that we have adequacy and access, because this is all about the numbers and all about the data. So Title I says 30, 60, 90 days into the school year, schools will demonstrate the leadership and effectiveness to ensure that they can transition those children to a more, beneficial outcome. And I'm just saying that they don't follow the federal regulations. And because this is a we the people state, we've accommodated this behavior for a long time, but it is destroying our children and our community. We have to have the same access as them. We need to make sure that all 3-year-olds are in an educational program, regardless of their behavior. And we need to understand what happens when they say a child's not prepared to enter into early start, because that's a delay. But when we don't hold them to the strict line of student achievement and support tools under special education, our children are being deemed differently, being measured differently under that habitual disciplinary problem. And that's just where they are, because they're earning to be expelled or suspended at the age of 11 for life. This can't continue, not if we're going to be free. So we have to hold them accountable. And I look forward to working with you and others, but this is 2025. And thank you.
Darlene, what boards are you on right now?
None.
Or but you would you but you attend what committee meetings do you attend?
As many as I can. I watch them, and because everything is interrelated. Department of Health and Human Services, the public education system, everything is intertwined. And because the Department of Health and Human Services has split off and put behavior or mental health services separate, then that means that they have to provide a lot of services that they have never provided. And we need to be right there to ensure that we are included in the conversation, because willful defiance and all these issues with these children, we're not making it. But we're not in the seat to have the conversation about the 259% willful issues. I mean, they're not bringing anything to our community, meaning that they don't train our families and they're not training our parents. We're losing our children to the foster care system. And this is historically just, it's destroying our nation. And so anytime you guys, I wanted to understand, and I wanted you guys to pay attention because you guys were butterflies in the room at the gala. People who are very powerful came to the table and greeted. There's a reason for that. They have to address our needs. Now, let's just talk about our needs, because that's the power that we have. Do you understand? They should be giving you money for training the families, and especially in historic West Side. And the mayor out there, she can set up some money for you guys to start doing parent involvement workshops, especially historic West Side, simply because they have a school now. You
Right.
understand?
Yeah.
Parent involvement is key, but we can't keep on. We understand how our children are punished in certain families.
Right.
We, and that's what we need to give our families alternatives to that destruction, because we come from broken families. That's it. But thank you.
And you know what, Darlene, you said something, because I was like, hold up. So we
I
went
was working the room.
I know you were. I was like, people over here throwing all kinds of drinks at the Lavapsi table. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. So
I knew. I mean, but you guys
I was
have to
like, what's
understand,
going on?
you're the one Black agency that represents engagement in the community, and you're doing it independently out of your own pockets.
So
Just
exactly. So let me say
and
that really quick. So let me just give them a preface of where we were so they don't think we was out here twerking somewhere. We were at the gala. We were at the Village Foundation, Dr. Young's Village Foundation. Listen, Lavapsi showed up and showed out. We had a table and a half
that's
that we
right.
supported student scholarships. And
Mm-hmm.
and people were like coming to our table, like, hey, we got drinks for the whole table. And I'm thinking, what's
Yes.
happening? But anywho, so but that's a testament of the work that we've been doing in this community. And
And it is also a testament that you guys have been identified. And you've met with the governor, you've met with all these people, but for whatever reason, I'm sorry, Joan Ebert has not aligned money to come to Lavoski. And so I'm
well, we
just
about to
saying,
get it. We about to get it.
I
We
know.
working on
And
it.
but I'm just saying, see, my dream was, I mean, Case in California was parents, teachers, and administrators all coming together to do a weekend workshop, like a warrior workshop, but teaching families about special education and all related services. And I'm just saying that model of Case in the state of California needs to be a model here, simply because we're with all of the head casinos. These casinos need to see their families being successful, and this needs to be a family town. We just need to transition it to where we're supporting more families. This
Absolutely.
is an
Thank
awesome
you so much.
opportunity. Huh?
Yes, I agree. I said thank you so much for bringing that up. Shaquilla,
We did have a good time at the
I
gala.
know.
Thank
Yeah, we
you to
did.
Lavapsi for inviting us, Ms. Tracy Lewis and Dr. Camila Bywaters. Thank you. Um, in terms of our, because this is a multifaceted issue that we've been having for many decades in this
Absolutely.
country and in this city. That, of course, Black Las Vegas. Without Black Las Vegas, there would not be a Las Vegas. But when we talk about the educational needs of our children and our families, the families themselves have to be all in. So we have to have more community engagement, but there has to be buy-in from the families as well. We have to look at what are we doing, what are we contributing as families, because the families, the moms and the dads, are the first teachers. They are the first educators. So, and that's not to take any accountability from the district, from the state, but we have to look at how can we educate our families in our households? What are we doing to advance that, advance their station, advance their condition? Because we do have great educators, great staff but we can do but so much within the time allotted to us, and then our children go back home. That's one. The other part is I agree with Darlene 100%. We need to look at our community, the Black community, because we are the ones who have the lowest numbers in terms of achievement, the highest numbers in terms of expulsion, the highest numbers in terms of placement. So we have to focus on us, and we have to do it unapologetically, because anytime we go outside of our homes and outside our communities and help everyone else out, we don't get the same thing. There's no reciprocity. And that's not to say that we shouldn't help people out, but we need to help our families first, and we need to help our communities first. We need to focus on ourselves first. And then if other people want some of our help, well, they're not that priority. And we're seeing the manifestations of how people really care about us in real time. So yeah, we need to focus on ourselves. We need to heal our own community. We need to get our families and our parents more engaged and give them the tools to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, in a time where, again, the Department of Education is projected to be eliminated with Project 2025, the new Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, came in with saying that she was going to get rid of the Department of Education. We do know that roughly, I think it's 6% of the funding comes from the federal government. Title I funding, I believe, comes from the federal government. These are things that we need to look at because that does have a very immediate impact on our schools and our children. So whoever that superintendent is, these are issues that they need to be aware of and have somewhat of a plan, or at least some insight on how they're going to maneuver this district around it. And not just that they may be getting rid of funding, but also the person that's sitting in the White House says that if schools require vaccinations, that they could lose funding. So there's a lot of different pressures coming from the top. This is why when people say, well, they only vote for local politicians because that's what matters the most and most immediately. What we're seeing now is issues on the federal level and from federal officers like the president and others can also have immediate impacts and negative ramifications on our community. Darlene mentioned getting children in school by 3 o'clock, by 3 years old, I believe, or early childhood education. We know that under Project 2025 and the things that Linda McMahon, the new Secretary of Education, has said, she wants to get rid of those things. So what are we as a community going to do to ensure that we keep those things that we need, as well as push our elected officials to push back on some of this federal overreach? Because remember, they often have said it's states' rights. Well, it doesn't get much more states' rights than our education, because that's down to the county level. So that lack of funds, and then the pressure coming from the chief executive, we need someone who has a plan to deal and maneuver in that environment.
Absolutely. And you know what? And I'm thinking about their presentations. I did see everyone's presentation. No one addressed that. No one, I didn't see anyone address, let me be specific, let me be clear. In the superintendent candidate interviews that they had, they went before the board and they did a presentation. I did not see anyone address such an important topic. And I did not see anyone talk about Black students' levels of achievement, which are pretty much like Shaquilla was saying, we're pretty much at the bottom. So I was paying attention to what their presentations were going to look like. So that definitely would have been it, because that's what everybody wants to know. How are you going to lead in this time with Cheeto Mussolini, Orange Theory, If you go to iHip, they'll call him some other names that I'm not going to say. When I get on YouTube, I might start saying them because in 2025, I'm like, I think I'm going to start cussing again.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. I wanted to say this one thing. We're almost blessed because when we're talking about states' rights, we're talking about everything's coming back down to the state level. And see, a lot of times people in the past have waited for the federal government to intervene, but it was Baby Bush who stated that if the people were not advocating for themselves within the state, the federal government was not going to get involved. And so we're living in a state where money talks, and that's just real. We have all these not for profit agencies that are providing awesome services for some of our children. But on the whole, the majority of our children are disproportionately impacted by behavioral issues. And as we are not on those major committees, and you know that Tyrone Thompson had all fourth graders where they should be competitive at the same. So those things can happen, but only when appropriate funding is landed. But because this is a rural and an urban district, rural and air, and everybody gets the same amount of funding. The funding for Title One, Economic Impact Aid, the McKinney-Vento grant, the Community Service Block grant, all these dollars are federal. Transportation dollars are federal. And the partnership that the federal government has with the community is also with the Black community. And I'm saying we just need to come to the table. I think it's an awesome thing that we have African Americans on the board now, but where's that community meeting that they're sharing what they're doing with our children, with us? And that's where they should be, sharing what the achievement level statewide, regardless of it's urban or rural. These are the children that are generating the dollars. And because we had the Moulin Rouge, the Cotton Club, and all of these Black performers, Sammy and everybody, and they still pay a higher rate in taxes because they're performers. That means that we're represented. We need to be at the table when the lack of outcomes, and it's called disparate impact and disproportionality, as they are not addressing their inability to work in our local communities. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darlene. Look at you. You are the code book. Start, you know what? I'm gonna call you the code book.
You're funny.
Yeah, Miss Darlene, you are just flourishing. Thank you so much. And for all the meetings that you attend, and you send me about 20 million emails, and I love it.
Well,
love
because
it.
they're moving so quickly, and you have to understand
Exactly.
it's time for them to answer to our community. And because we have African Americans that are in CCSD, we're still not addressing the issues in CCSD for our
Absolutely.
children. And that has to be an absolute, because we have a Black attorney general. We have a senator that is African American. We have lots of members of representation. They're the ones that are responsible to us as a community, even though they're not elected to represent us. They, however, are who we are, and they know what we feel. And there must be dollars allocated in the Black community to ensure that adequacy happens, because our families are just broken. They're broken from slavery. And this is historic. And because it's historic brokenness, yes, there's abuse in our families. Yes, our young men are being put on child support right out of high school with no skills and no job. This is criminal. And you can't, this is like blackmail. You're forced to attend public school, then you get nothing out of it. And then in the end, you still are incarcerated simply because you can't meet your challenges of your human behavior. Enough is enough.
Right. So there are some questions that came. Thank you, Miss Darlene. There's some questions that I want to address. So Shaquilla asked, is Nevada's economy not strong enough to withstand the federal government not giving funds to our state? That is a great question, because we just got, Darlene's laughing. The last report that I saw is that we were told that we were in a balanced state, but then the last reports that I'm hearing is that we're like 335 plus or minus million in deficit. So I don't know what that's going to look like for education. We're going to have to
Because you got to look at yourself in the mirror and understand that we're generating those dollars. All those babies are, think about what they're saying, how much each one of your children are generating. But then understand temporary teachers, they were told to clean that stuff up a long time ago. They use temporary teachers in larger facilities where our children are. And then those teachers don't have the skills or resources to work with those children, but they are not qualified for the $100,000 that's set aside for every teacher in the school. And it's just they're moving money and moving our children. And that's what they've always done. And so we just have to understand that AB 469, well, the state took over CCSD a long time ago in 2017, and they were told to change, and they couldn't change. That item 13 was real. They just couldn't do it because the teachers do control everything. That's why we need to work with that NASA, and NASA bought us table. NASA.
Hey, don't
Nothing
be
like
giving too many
NASA.
shout outs. I'm just joking.
But
Yeah,
he said he
yeah.
was willing to work with Levosky. He said, and then I think that the NAACP should be at the table, and then early childhood education, because they say they have two organizations that are doing early childhood. But
Mhm.
I want to know where the pack is, where the parent information, where are the parent workshops that are required under Head Start, that are required by law. And
Right.
that's why there are so few and their partnerships. And I'm saying we just need to be at the table when we're talking about the lack of student achievement. And it's got to be more than at those judicial meetings where the behaviors are
Absolutely.
really out of control.
But
Now,
let's talk about some of
okay.
those laws, because
Okay.
I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we put things in perspective.
Yeah,
Because
I'll
one of the
help.
roles that the Department of Education played was when things fell through on the local and state level, it was the federal government through the Department of Education that came in to right the wrongs,
Yeah.
especially when it dealt with racism and inequities. Well, if
Hmm.
you don't have the Department of Education on the federal level, or you have a much more neutered Department of Education on the federal level, there is no one that to turn to that you would normally turn to. And again, when we start talking about early child education,
Hmm.
Project 2025 is going to get rid of that.
Well,
So I'm
I
not
mean,
saying, so I just want to make this point is that what I want to make sure that we're looking at the realities
hmm,
of today, because it's the realities of this administration
hmm,
that we're going to have to deal with. And simply saying that, well, yeah, there's laws on the books. Well, laws on the books are just words on paper without enforcement.
right.
And what we're seeing is a reversal, first of all, an actual reversal of those words on paper, and enforcement going in the opposite direction. Because if you listen to this administration, what this administration has said and is saying is that white people are owed reparations and
Absolutely.
some
That's what
type
they're
of
saying.
affirmative action, because they are the ones
Hmm.
who've had racism perpetrated against them. That's why I'm saying this new superintendent,
Hmm.
this is not 10 years ago. This is a new field of play that
Right.
we're on, and we need to adapt
Mhm.
to that field of play.
Well, but when they did the money the last time, um, there was an extraordinary high amount of dollars that went to special education and special education within the system, but they didn't build out any new services, meaning that, the Department of Health is just now looking at behavioral health. And I'm saying that public education is mandated by law. And it is in the Constitution that we have equal access. But it takes a nation, and it's going to take all of us to demand that we are at the table measuring the lack or outcomes or measured data that they're saying it's happening. You can't have all these people at the table, all these not-for-profits, but the state has nothing in the game. You have to, they write RFPs to the harbor, and someone in the harbor approves that, and then somebody has a business. And I don't know how those businesses are changing the behavior of those children who are forced through that process and removed from their gifted, talented placement for life, because it's very strict, but willful defiance. And since the district had a 259% issues of willful defiance of our people, what does that look like? Because that's the decisions that are made at the local school site. And when the local schools have been told that they did not have to fill out the civil rights data, when you go to the US Department of Education, you type in the civil rights data is there for every school. but it is up to the local people of what we're going to tolerate. And I'm not willing to tolerate the failure of our children anymore based on willful issues, because there's something called a manifestation determination hearing. And and all states are required to turn that in before they move children. And these people don't have any of the data. And they said, well, what can we do? Well, there's something that we can do as a people. We need to unite and we need to demand outcomes. And that's where we come in, because we can't change anything that's already happened if we're not going to stand together. Unity
Absolutely.
is the deal.
Absolutely. And I love that. So I really quick, I know Miss Roberta had put in the chat that there are teachers have already been getting surplus. And then there are, I don't know if you wanted to explain, or you can come on if you want, but you don't have to. And then there are some elementary schools that are now changing to become bilingual. And you said, what about our children? These schools are using the funding for the wrong purpose. So I think what's important to know, and I clarify if for me, Roberta, if I'm not saying this correctly, but this is why it is so important that we have Black leaders.
Mm-hmm.
After all the school board meetings I listen to, I rarely ever hear, and I'm still waiting for someone to bring up the issues that Black children are having.
Right. Okay. As a substitute teacher,
Yeah.
the first thing is I found out recently, I started about 6, 7 years ago. One of my friends is being surplus. She's a high school teacher. Surplus, they've got to find her a job.
Wow.
It turns out it's happened. She found that in January. They have to find her a job in 30 to 45 days someplace else. She's a Black science high school teacher. She's been doing that for 5 years at a high school here in Nevada. And now she's going to find a new job. Well, now they have to find a new job. And that's ridiculous. Okay. The second thing is that, as many people may not know, or some people do know, there are elementary schools that are now, I just want to say this the correct way, bilingual, meaning that the students in the school have the opportunity to learn in Spanish or in English. I'm from New York, if you cannot tell.
Who
And
would have known?
but and I just want to say that a system where the education, the high school, the graduation, and all that, and no one's at fault, and I'm going to say this, the level is so low that we're at the bottom of that scale. There is no need to teach anybody any other language but English in elementary school. That because they have to be able to communicate in junior high school. They have to be able to write essays. And as a sub, many students in junior high cannot do it. They don't have the verbiage. They understand some words, but they don't have the opportunity, the knowledge to really put together the whole idea, the thought process. You have to really dig at it. So we're teaching, but it's late. They should learn that English. They should be able to understand it. If you want to go home and use the same sentences in Spanish, because what I used to do in elementary school, I would give the parents books. Have the student read to the parent. Parent doesn't understand, that's okay. Students understand the words. Let them learn the words, and that's okay. Let them get familiar with the words. If you want to read it in Spanish, read in Spanish to your student. But read. We've got to read. And they still have this going on. Well, the reading is very bad. And you know why I say this? Because when they take their tests, they don't understand the questions.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Yeah.
It has to do with English and learning.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Miss Slaughter.
Yes, I am sitting in the sauna, but I'm going to come on anyway. But number one, I wanted to say thank you guys for all that you're doing. And I wanted to kind of explore some of the questions that were posed. For example, our kids, why are they lacking, right? Number one, they aren't getting what they need from educators, right? And I'm being honest. So as a Black educator, I have to be able to educate all types of kids. It doesn't matter what your race is, but the requirement for me, what I see appears to be that teachers of other races don't have to connect, right? I have to make connection regardless. I don't care what your race is. I don't care if you don't speak English. I've got to be able to connect with you as a parent. That's a part of my the expectation for me as a Black educator, right? I hear so many Caucasian teachers and teachers of other races complaining about our kids. Well, it's because the connection isn't made and they have these preconceived ideas
Right.
about our kids, right? So, how do we, how does, I wouldn't even say we, how does administration not have the same expectations of them than they do Black educators? And that's across the board. I've talked to colleagues and we all feel the same. In addition to that, I think that we have strategists in the school. Why not have behavior strategists that look like our kids? Because our kids connect. I can look at a kid and come here. I have all the time. I can look at those kids and I had someone to insult me and say to me, have you ever thought about going into administration? I didn't think you had it in you, because I'm very loving and because I probably carry myself the way I'm always happy and everything, but I know how to get with the kids. Come here right now. I'm not playing with you. Stop playing. Take that hat off. Where they'll curse our principal out, but I can say the same thing to him and get with him. Okay, Miss Slaughter. Okay, I understand. I'm not playing. Take that hat off right now, boy. Stop playing, right? So our kids need something else. And we as educators should be required to give them that something else regardless, because I can give every other kid, any other kid, I can give them what they need. But why is the requirement not the same for everybody? If you need to go to some type of classes to teach you this, you've got to be able to get on the phone and talk to that parent who sleeps all day. You got to call them at a time where they're not sleeping. It can't be they were sleeping, so I just didn't contact them. I just expelled them. I just suspended. Let's do a prevention. Send them to Miss Slaughter. They have a rapport with Miss Slaughter. Instead, no, they send them right to the deans, and then the documentation starts, and it makes me sick. It makes me so sick. So that's all I have to say.
So I'm gonna say something real quick, and then Shaquilla's gonna go next, and then I want to make sure that we address Dr. Courtney's comment about Black therapists. So wait, let me make sure she said Black therapist. Yes, as a Black therapist. So I think so. There's a couple things that we can also talk about, but for future shows too. But this is why I say that leadership is so important, because that leader really sets the tone and the climate of the culture in what initiatives, what strategies, what groups we're going to focus in, and how strategic that work is going to be. So there has not, even though the Clark County School District has done multiple presentations, you can go back in the Clark County School District school board meetings, and every time the department that comes up that talks about absenteeism or talks about students, Black students who are struggling, they say the same thing every time. Oh, we know we're not in good numbers. And then they come back and they say the same thing over again. And they never tell us what the strategy is that they're going to do to improve. And this is why I say that the leader is so important to really directing the vision and saying, hey, you need to have a time, a plan, because many of the superintendents and y'all making six figures. So I need to see you come through with something with the six figures that you got. Okay. The second thing that I wanted to say, education. I don't know if I think I'm just going to say it like this. Education is not a gatekeeping field. Anyone, if you can pass a background check, and some of these people that are sneaking through these background checks and getting caught up in all this silliness out here with the children, I don't even know how they're getting through the cracks. But anyone can become a teacher if you are willing to go to school, do your bachelor's, and pass whatever your exams are. And I think because of that, because one of my critiques of education programs is, how are we identifying people who maybe this isn't really what their career should be? Because one, they don't like children, but yet they're coming to be a teacher because it's a field that you can get in and you always know that you're going to have a job and all you need to do is just go through it. So what the education field does not do is they don't do like personality tests to say, hey, maybe this is not the field for you, and we're not going to approve you. And I think that's a lot of the problem too with education, is that we get people who really don't. We have white teachers who don't like Black children, but then they're with Black children. And it could be the same for any ism that we have. So I think those are kind of the two biggest issues that I see in education, is that we're not gatekeepers and anyone can become an educator. And especially with now we have alternate route to licensing. In my alternate route to licensing, there was about 5 people that I was like, oh, wait, you're changing your career to become a teacher? I was like, oh, heck nah. You don't need to be nowhere around children, but they got licensed and they were able to be up in there teaching children. So I think that really does impact us. Shaquilla?
Yes, I agree with everything you said, and also Mrs. McIntyre. As far as like those tests, when you want to become a firefighter or when you want to become a police officer, you have to take a psychological exam. You have to take those exams before you even, that's one of the things you have to do. So I do agree with that part. And as far as um people connecting with our children, you can't connect with someone you don't care about. That's not something that you can be taught. So and that's not to say that there's other cultures or other races that don't connect with us, because if you're a great educator, a great staff, that is part of who you are. But as far as us teaching that, this is something that is endogenous to Black people. Like we can't connect with anyone because it's in our genetic makeup. This is something that's part of who we are. You can't be us and you'll never be us. So we can't expect them to be us. But what we can do is, like Camilla said, we can put those items in place so that we can filter out those who really shouldn't be working with children, who really shouldn't be working with people, period. We can put those things in place. And we can hold our board and our superintendent accountable for making sure not only qualified people become are able to get in, but that people who really can have connection with others, because it takes a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and a lot of dedication to wake up each morning and be with 25, 35, 40, 45 children that don't necessarily belong to you, but you go in there every day because you love what you do. And we love what we do, and that's what we do. And we could do anything. All of us could do anything, but we do it because not only do we love what we do, but we see in our students the same that we see in our children, the same that we see in our cousins, the same that we see in our nieces and nephews. So you have to have that within yourself. And a lot of people in the field, like Camilla said, just don't have it. And like you said, Mr. McIntyre, they just said, oh, let me just do this because I don't, what else am I going to do? Which is not fair, it's not right, but we can put those things in place to make sure those kinds of individuals don't come into CCSD. Let them go to Florida.
Yeah. I see Tracy, Assemblywoman Claire has some questions. So I want to make sure that we address those. And then I want to talk really quick because Dr. Courtney had mentioned, as a Black therapist, I can tell you that the reason behavior doesn't change is because we are not utilizing the talent in our community. And I absolutely agree with this. I know on the campaign trail for me, one thing that was important that I said on my platform was that I wanted the Clark County School District to be equitable in the agreements, contracts that they give out, and even businesses, the local businesses that they're supporting. And then ensuring that people have opportunities to do, because we know that we have a shortage of behavior specialists. We have a shortage of counselors and social workers and just therapists that can do this work. And they should be able to do this work. Dr. Courtney?
There we are. Hi. I'm so glad to be here. This is my first meeting.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, but I absolutely, because I think what ends up happening is we use dollars and we send them out of the community. We have one of our biggest small business sectors in Las Vegas specifically is probably therapists, because most therapists go into private practice. And so when the district gets money, it's interesting that then these weird companies that come from who knows where get these contracts to do telehealth with our kids. They don't know our population, they don't know the layout of Nevada. And a lot of times, we don't even know who these people are. They're people over a computer that are supposed to be meeting with children in schools and doing whatever. When we have talented therapists in this community that it would actually keep our businesses alive, to be able to work with the school district. Because one of the biggest barriers we have is kind of insurance paneling and those kind of things. They bypass all of that when they send this money to these companies that are from wherever they are. And so I think that if we could find ways to bridge the gap between the people that are in this community, and then also recognizing that the scope of mental health, there's so many different parts of it. So behavioral therapists are one thing, but having therapists that are actually doing process work with kids embedded in schools and connected with schools, so that these kids that are having these traumatic experiences, these parents that are having these traumatic experiences, can have people that are professionals manage that. So that's all I wanted to add today. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Yeah.
You are amazing. I voted for you, and me and Lorena had a moment. We survived it, but I look forward to being on more calls.
Oh, I love it. And I love what you're saying. And this is a part of the work. And this is actually, now please know that I will flip on anybody, any kind of leader, and they know, like, listen, we will flip in a second, and know that we're going to hold whoever is chosen to be the superintendent accountable. So to the superintendent candidates, if you do, and I know that many of you do watch, I'm not sure about what's his face, the guy from Michigan, but if you're watching, there was a lot of topics that we talked about tonight, superintendent hopefuls, that should be a part of the work. So making sure that we're connecting our local community, our local business owners, our local therapists, and that they're having these opportunities to serve our students best. So one of the things that with Superintendent Jara that happened, that was, he was horrible, because he was a part of the cohort. Which one was it? He's Chiefs for Change, and then it was the
Greater Council of Schools.
The Council of Great City Schools. So what we found is that a lot of the contracts and agreements were being kind of centralized within this cohort, and that's how a lot of that kind of, and Tracy, you can talk more about the past, but I focused in on superintendents. For me, my greatest focus was Jara. So I don't know if I think we've always had a good old boy system in the Clark County School District. So I'm not sure if that's been the same ethic before Jara. But that's something that we absolutely have to disrupt, because one, we're taxpayers, and we should be able to have a cyclical effect where our community and our tax dollars are most importantly supporting our students, but also the communities that support schools and keep them going. So please know that that is a part of our work, and ensuring that whoever the superintendent is that they're doing great business with our students and communities, so that we're able to bring in high level therapists such as yourself to do this work. Trust me, that's on our radar.
Sister Camila, one of the things, and I'll turn it over to you, Tracy, is you mentioned town halls and community get-togethers. All too often we wait on the school board and those folks to do these town halls, and they're not being done. And if they are being done, it's not enough of them. And someone mentioned the community, I think it was Shaquila was mentioning community engagement before. The community is probably engaged as much as it's going to be engaged without some catalyst for greater engagement. And maybe that's something that the body of people here tonight can look at on a later date, is maybe we need to start designing and calling for our own community town halls. All right. Sister Tracy.
So I just want to add a couple of things. So I'm trying to remember going backwards and coming forwards. So some of the things that touch on that Darlene was talking about in the past, Mr. Gene Collins and myself we've really gotten on our Black elected officials that's up in the legislative body, because they have been some of the ones that have been writing and been a part of bad policy writing, and then they make excuses. And so I'm just gonna throw this out. At one point in time, the Hispanic coalition of elected officials got together. This was when Sandoval was governor, and he gave them some money, and the Black elected officials did not ask for any money. And so they received all of this money. And so then when they were questioned, they felt like we didn't need the money. And so we have been on our elected body, which is a part of these conversations that we're having. And at some point in time, we have to stop being afraid of holding people accountable because we don't want to hurt feelings, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Because I think sometimes we get in our emotions instead of dealing with what is actually in front of us. And so I have always been a big proponent of saying we're in the situation that we're in as Black folks in the Black community because of us. And when we have tried to bring these issues forward, we've been shut down because they don't like the messenger. Well, the messenger is bringing you some truth that you need to investigate or kind of go along with or figure it out for yourself. But like now, we're in this pickle where we're having to figure it out about another superintendent. And with the trustees, we've been very clear with all of them. We cannot make any bad decisions with this particular superintendent because we've already lost 5 years with JARA plus a lot of money. And then there's been a lot of distrust because of this man. So there has to be somebody who can come in and build trust and restore some level of faith and hope back into, you know, the system of education is with all of our kids. The other thing I wanted to add is that we've also had conversations with them, letting them know we're coming with a Black agenda. We know that our data is piss poor across the board for Black students, Black staff, Black this, Black that, Black whatever they want to call us, African American, Negro, color, whatever they want to call us. But everything is, you know, so we're letting them know we advocate for all children, but we have a emphasis on Black because we have been left out of everything. And as much as Lavapsi has been out there trying to fight, we have been undermined by our own people. We, as much as we've tried to pull all of our groups and organizations together, they get in these spaces with a JARA or somebody close to a JARA, and they go silo and they start doing the wackadoodle crazy stuff. And then here it is, we're trying to hold him accountable or whoever it is accountable, and nothing is getting done except for no data, bad data, and no results. And this is where we are. There are many groups and organizations that want to work or partner with certain schools. We're hoping that whomever this superintendent is, that they're willing to do that. I mean, from some of the conversations that I've heard and had with some of them, they're saying they're on board, you know, but they're going to have to come in to see what's all there to work with, right? Because right now they don't know. They're going to have to come in and do an inventory. There's probably going to be a high turnover of staff, whoever it is, which we do need to clean house, which brings me to the other question about the Good Old Boys Network. Yes, from a historical perspective, I won't say the gentleman's name out of respect because he's an older gentleman and he's, you know, in a memory care facility right now, but people who've been around long enough will know who it is. But he had an issue with Black males, period, with Black people. But there were certain Black leaders that he will work with in the community based on whatever that situation was. But when it came down to hiring Black males as far as administrators or educators, that was like a no-no. And so when we started to see our men being hired, then they would come and they would undermine them and get rid of them. So I can go back to Essington Wade, and these are people who you can go and Google. Dr. Essington Wade, he was one of the first ones. He was working over there at the PBS office, and he wrote a book about it. It's called The Gag Order Lifted on the Fifth Largest School District. It's on Amazon. So they went after him. He's gone. Then those who've been around long enough know about Dr. Andre Denson. But that was more of a black on black kind of a situation, but there were some white folks involved with that as well. And then we know what happened over there at Matt Kelly with Mr. Funches. We all know what that was all about. And then you come, and now we see what some of these other black men have done. They brought it on themselves where, you know, they couldn't keep their pants up. So that we all know that's a no-no. So right now we have at the high school level, a comprehensive high school, is only Dr. Anthony Morentic over at ATEC. Now, there's a few others here and there, but they're in the behavioral school. We're talking about comprehensive high school. We just have one. At the high school level, we fought to get Black females. I think we have 3, it may be 4 right now. But for a district this large, our numbers have been really piss poor. Middle school, there's 1 Black male principal. Elementary, 1 Black male principal. As far as female principals at the elementary level, they've always kind of been about mid-20s, maybe 30-ish, give or take. But we have people that don't look like us that we're fighting, and then we have our own people that we're fighting because everybody is trying to jockey for a position or a title or this, that, or the other. I don't want anything but to see us all liberated. And we can't be liberated until we get on the same page and understand that at the end of the day, we're out here fighting for our kids and our families and people that look like us that are in these positions. And then we have to hold the people that look like us accountable because some of them are more harsh on our kids than some of the white folks are. So we also have to hold them accountable. And we absolutely need to stop going out recreating the wheel when we already have organizations that are doing the work. We just need all hands on deck so people can get in these spaces and do the work. That's all of APSI has ever asked of the community. We have the pillars. We've had other groups and organizations and individuals that have gone out and recreated. So then there's been this disconnect. Oh, we thought you guys were this group, or we thought you were that group. Well, we've been trying to work with them, but they went and created their own because they wanted to be the lead. We've always said we would be advocates, and you take those commissions and you work them. If you've never had an opportunity to go to a NAPSE, the National Alliance of Black School Educators Conference, I would recommend it. Have a conversation with Dr. Anthony Morentic and Belinda Morentic. They went this year and they saw what we had been saying. Previously, it was Dr. Greta PA. If you know her, have a conversation with her. She's a former member of LABAPSI. Dr. Bernard Hamilton, Dr. Linda Young, Miss Anna Lee, Charity Bernardo. These were the people who were very consistent with LABAPSI and NAPSI back in the day. So if you guys get a chance to go to any of those conferences, I recommend it wholeheartedly to go and to see the work that they are doing at the national level. And if I have emails and stuff, when I get information, I tend to send it out. But I think I've covered everything as far as what we were talking about. But I do want everybody to know that we have said to these people, the candidates, that we're coming to them with a Black agenda. We're not just, this is not going to be a free fall. And then with the town hall meetings, it's up to the trustees. Now, community can call town hall meetings. We've done them in the past. But for the most part, certain trustees can go from their schools or on a weekend or whatever they choose to do to have a town hall meeting to say what is going on in their district or to have like a question and answer. I know that Councilwoman Chandra Armstrongs have been trying to do it in Ward 5 with Tamika Henry. So I do know that that's going on, but that's just dealing with the administrators. But when we're saying town halls, we're talking about the community as a whole. And we've done everything that we can humanly possibly do to hold these people accountable. We brought this information forward. Every time we thinking we're moving forward, we have people, like I said, they go in and they go silo. So I tend to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to certain things like that because I've been dealing with it for so long with my mother and with the women of Wake Up. So I know all of that history with these people and how they operate and what they're about. And so I try to safeguard people when I know they're getting ready to go down a rabbit hole. And hopefully, whoever this new superintendent will be able to move forward with them in correcting a lot of the wrongs that have taken place. So I think I've covered everything that we've talked about.
Yeah, I
Thus
think there's
far.
2 questions here that from Assemblywoman Claire Thomas. So how are the next superintendents going to address what I was talking about? And I think that's a great question that I would love to, have a conversation with them about. And that was around, I believe, Assemblywoman Thomas, that was around that question that you asked was when I was talking about being gatekeepers around being more selective about who can come into the field of education.
Mhm.
And then the next question was, how are the unions going to be in the ear of the next superintendent when members file charges on the school district when she disciplined those teachers that show biases against minority children? I think this is going to be an absolute problem. The unions, I mean, just what I know about, and I know they probably watching too, but I'm just going to be real. Like, I know CCEA tries to, kind of the leadership tries, puts their mark and authority in the mix. So I think it would be I think it's going to be controversial.
Yeah, they're the bullies of the bunch.
And I'm just going to be,
CCPA is the bully.
listen, CCEA did not endorse me in the what is it? In the race, and we were going and I was going against an extremist. So okay. Thank you. But anywho, so that's just where they are. So
So
I'm sure the next time they'll be like, "Oh, you said we didn't endorse you." Nah, 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 nah. Well, I'm not coming to the meeting next time, but anywho, go
I
ahead.
want I wanted to talk about the money because you know Clark County is still sitting on that American Rescue money. And they're sitting on it because they couldn't spend it because they didn't have the correct plans to spend it. And so it's kind of like that money is sitting there. And all those dollars that were allocated like on the reserve for school sites who weren't spending that money, millions of dollars. And I'm sorry, you know who's generating that money? It's we, the people, because that's federal dollars that they can't spend. The conversation should be the training for families so that they can do self advocacy. And in California, they do, they train the families. I don't understand why Title One, neglected and delinquent, the McKinney-Vento grant, none of that. People don't really even understand the workings of the money. And then people say that they get their rent paid out of Title One. I didn't know that. I didn't know it could pay rent, but I guess it can. But it doesn't really matter. Homeless people are in situations with children and they need support. And people have figured out how to get around the rules. The real deal is that we need to come clean and we need to understand that we need to train our families. There should be a federal coordinator for Title One and all those federal monies that does training under the use of funds. And that's, it should be a commitment. And so I don't understand what I see. I do see failure and I do not see us winning until we get to the table, meaning that Joan knows exactly how everybody cut corners, and especially that one that had to leave, the person, whatever his name was, he had to leave. But the whole thing is that he figured out how to use special ed and raise that $20,000 per student out there in the rules. Like they have some special thing that happened to their kids out there that didn't happen to our kids. And it's enough is enough because every child generates a certain dollar. It makes a difference. when they graduate? Are they being employed? And they're not.
Yeah.
We know what's happening out there at Black Mountain. We know that they were found guilty of violating Title II rights for children who are in the lockup. Those people look like us. Well, what's going on, and when are we coming to the table? Before they continue, we need to be having a seat at that table so that we can talk about the willful defiance issues and the training that our families need to turn it around. We don't need to see it on the news. We don't need to see it on the news because people don't know what they need to know to raise children. It is a great sacrifice. And it's all
Absolutely.
about love. But if we can't even preach the love, I don't know what we can do.
Well, you know what, Darlene? You came through. You came through hot tonight, Darlene. Okay. Look at you. You all know what? I am so excited that we got to get. Listen, y'all, we went over. It's 7:36. And I know we probably didn't get into all the juicy topics that we could have, but please make sure that you're participating. Let's highlight school boards. Let's see what's going on. Make sure that we're participating because a lot of things are coming down our way. Listen, elevating our Blackness in this time is so important. And you know, it has, I guess what am I saying? Where I'm going? Elevating Blackness is so important in this time. And as I'm sitting here, I watch the news, I'm watching independent media, I'm listening to everything that's happening in our political space. And this is the time where we have to, one, just express our greatness, who we are, because there is an attack on us as a people. It is an absolute attack on Black people in the disguise of DEI. They're changing up the words and the language so that people can feel comfortable with saying it. But this is an absolute attack on Black people. And if you don't believe me, then go back and look at the comments that were spewed on one of the greatest NFL halftime shows ever. Kendrick Lamar. If you want to just go back and listen to what people were saying, the comments that they were making, there is such a hatred for Black people. One, in the fact that, and when I'm talking about white people, listen, I'm talking about evil white people with the colonizing spirit. I'm talking about you. You who do not want to be in society with Black people, I am talking about you. When I talk about white people, I'm not talking about our allies and those who are doing their work to deconstruct colonization within their spirit. I'm not talking about you. So I don't want you to be offended, but please understand that right now, there is no greater time for Black people to elevate our excellence, to elevate who we are, and to be unapologetic about this. And because of the attacks that are just on our lives, it is absolutely important that we elevate who we are and that we be excellent like we are at all times. And what I love, and I know that we didn't get we haven't talked about Kendrick Lamar yet, but what I love about what Kendrick Lamar said and did is that through his song that was a diss track, actually, and that he put a little gold nuggets in it, he has been able, through his music, to bring people from all different cultures together. I have seen Asian people, I have seen Native Americans in their tribal gowns, like literally walking to his songs and dancing and walking and just being in community. And what he said in his show was that you cannot fake influence. And that's what we as Black people bring. People love our culture. They love who we are. And we have to continue to elevate that because who we are is so influential. Big shout out really quick to Assemblyman Ruben De Silva. I understand that he has a bill on reparations. I need to go check and see what it's about, but I know my understanding is about gathering information about doing the research. So we'll check that out, follow up with that. Assemblywoman Erica Mosca has a bill coming up that she wants school board trustees to be paid the same amount equivalent to commissioners. So we're going to check and follow in on that. There's quite a few bills in the legislature that we need to follow. I haven't had a lot of time to really focus on it, but I will and provide some updates. And now listen, we do need to get, my opinion, we need some qualifications on these school board trustees. Okay. If you're gonna be getting some coin, you're gonna need to come up with some qualifications, okay? Because that's something we need to talk about, because on the bare level, teachers at least have a bachelor's degree. So a school board trustee should at least, how you up here trying to tell teachers with bachelor's, master's, PhDs, doctoral degrees what to do, and you haven't even finished I'm talking about trustee
High school. Some of them haven't even finished high school.
yeah. And let me say this, because let me go back, because they're going to be like, oh, she's bashing people. I believe that there's diamonds in the rough. I absolutely did believe. And I believe that there's some people who have done a phenomenal job who have not gone through like a bachelor's or 4-year university and done whatever their education level has been. So I don't want to bash those people who have done there. But on the other hand, there's people who really do not really care about education, but then want to lead and tell everybody else what to do. So I do think we need to have some qualifications around it. I want to make sure that I clarify that just because you do not have a degree doesn't mean that you can't be a well-rounded trustee, because we've seen that with a couple of trustees who I thought were very phenomenal. But we do need to really have a serious conversation about who's leading and what you need to at least come up with something, But anywho, we've gone over last words, Mr. Rodney.
Things are going to happen very quickly. Things
Absolutely.
are happening very quickly. We need to pay attention to the news. And if your news source is independent news, do the research wherever your news is coming from. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I just cannot watch the news anymore. They're watching the news and they're making the news. And if we're not watching it, we don't know what's being made and how it impacts us. And for this specific conversation, to our children, the pattern has been, when a new secretary is approved, within a few days, they start making major moves. Absolutely. Whether it's at the Defense Department, in HHS, the Treasury Department. Well, now we have a new one at the Department of Education, whose record is clear on how she feels about abolishing public education. Yeah. About defunding public education. There's a document called Project 2025 that has written it all out. And so far, they've stayed pretty close to Project 2025, if not done things even worse. So we can expect this pattern to continue, because it has been the pattern. Remember that the power is in the people, and that is us. And it's more of us than it is of them. But are we like the elephant that's scared of the little mouse that squeaks a lot? Or are we going to be the people that we are, the leaders that we are? Are we going to make the country, make the school district as we believe it should be? Or are we going to let someone sitting on high on his golden throne telling us how our district is going to be? This is on us. We need to embrace that it is on us, prepare ourselves for the battle, because shots have been fired. The troops, nobody's coming to rescue us. Absolutely. It is all on us.
It is. Wow. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Tracy, did you have last words? Did Tracy freeze? All right, she's frozen. Did anyone else have last words before we leave? We went way over, y'all. And you all, some of you stayed. Thank you. I know Mr. Rogers like, I gotta go. What y'all doing? Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that you research on your own at ccsd.net. You can get the information, the curriculum vitas, the resumes of the candidates who are going up for superintendent. Please pay attention to the district sizes and the funding opportunities that they've been able to lead over, because I think that's absolutely important as we're looking for a new superintendent. We are at a very critical moment. We've been waiting for decades to have a leader in place who will really be able to turn our district around and then also value the voices of our community. We do not need a superintendent who's going to lock people out because they don't like them. Like, you know, that it is what it is. You don't have to like me, but we can work together to do what's best for children. And that is that's critically important, that we have a superintendent who can work with our divided community. Whether you believe it or not, if you haven't been paying attention to education in the state of Nevada and specifically in the Clark County School District, we are very divided. Very divided. So we need someone who can come to the table, listen to all voices, and really make well-rounded decisions with the understanding that we're not always going to agree, but please know we're going to hold you accountable. So to our superintendent candidates who are looking around and looking to see what we're saying, we're going to be holding you super duper accountable. We're going to be on you like white on rice. As soon as you get in, your first email is going to come from LAVAPSI, and we want to make this train roll and really do what's right for our students and really just build an educational system that everyone can be proud of. We are the tourism capital of the United States, right? We're it. Las Vegas is it. And when people are coming to a city and they're thinking about moving, they want a good educational system. We can do it. We have the leaders here and the people here, the teachers. We have it. Let's do it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Will there be a Reuben Duncan tomorrow?